Why you feel like a fraud. When life finally goes right, there is a strange moment that happens when life finally starts going right. You get the opportunity you wanted, the message you were hoping for, the achievement you worked toward, and instead of feeling relieved, you feel exposed. A quiet thought appears. Maybe they made a mistake. Maybe I just got lucky. Soon they'll realize I'm not actually as capable as they think. You may smile. You may say thank you. You may even appear confident. But somewhere underneath it all, you are waiting for the moment when everything collapses. Not because you want it to, because a part of you does not fully believe that good things are allowed to stay. Visual. A person standing alone in a bright room while a faint shadow remains behind them. This is one of the strangest emotional experiences in psychology. You can spend years wanting something. Then, when it finally arrives, your mind starts looking for evidence, though you do not deserve it. And the question is, why? Why can success sometimes create anxiety instead of confidence? Why does being recognized sometimes make you feel like you are pretending? And why does the brain sometimes treat a good life as if it is a threat? The strange discomfort of being seen. Imagine you finally get promoted. Your manager tells you that you earned it. Your friends congratulate you. Your family is proud. But later that night, you are alone in your room. And instead of thinking, I did it, you think, I just got lucky. Maybe the timing helped. Maybe they think I'm more capable than I really am. The next morning, you start working harder than before. Not because you are inspired, because you are trying to prove that the previous success was not an accident. This is where success can become psychologically exhausting. You are no longer simply doing the work. You are performing an identity. You are trying to maintain the image that other people now have of you. And every mistake begins to feel dangerous. A small error is no longer just a mistake. Your mind interprets it as evidence. That is the real me. This pattern is often associated with what psychologists call impostor feelings. But the deeper issue is not simply that you doubt your abilities. It is that your internal identity has not caught up with your external reality. Your life has changed, but your self-image is still living in an older chapter. Visual. An old photograph slowly overlapping with a present-day person. You may still emotionally identify as the person who was overlooked, the person who struggled, the person who was always behind, the person who had to prove themselves. So when life suddenly gives you evidence that you are capable, your brain experiences a contradiction. The outside world says, you belong here. Your internal model says, people like you do not usually get here. And when reality conflicts with identity, the brain does not always change the identity immediately. Sometimes it questions reality instead. But this is where the pattern becomes more interesting, because this feeling may not have started with success at all. When doubt becomes an adaptation. Think about someone who grew up learning that approval was unpredictable. Sometimes they were praised, sometimes ignored. Sometimes their mistakes received more attention than their progress. Over time, the brain begins to study the environment. It asks, what do I need to do to stay safe? What version of me gets accepted? What happens if I make a mistake? This is not conscious. It is learning. The brain is constantly building predictions about the world. If you repeatedly experience criticism, rejection, instability, or pressure to perform, Your brain may learn that success is temporary, and that being noticed creates risk. So when you eventually succeed, an old protective system may activate. It says, be careful. Do not relax. Something could go wrong. This is why feeling like a fraud can sometimes be an adaptation. Never become too comfortable. Your mind may have learned that confidence you always feel is dangerous, like you're about to be exposed. Because confidence you will lead to disappointment. You will keep checking, can lead to pain. You will keep preparing. In the short term, this can protect you from embarrassment. But in the long term, it creates a strange prison. You achieve something and immediately move the finish line. You receive praise and explain it away. You make progress and call it luck. The reward arrives, but your mind refuses to let you experience it. And the reason is connected to how the brain learns what to trust. The brain does not simply see reality. Your brain is not a camera. It does not passively record everything that happens. It is closer to a prediction machine. It constantly creates expectations about what is likely to happen next. Then it compares those expectations with reality. Visual, abstract brain animation with predictions appearing before real images. Here is a simple mental model. Imagine your identity as a thermostat. If the thermostat is set to, I am not capable, then success feels like a room that suddenly becomes too warm. The brain experiences discomfort, so it tries to restore the old temperature. How? By explaining the success away. You got lucky. It was easy. Anyone could have done it. This reduces the psychological tension. In psychology, this kind of tension is often connected to cognitive dissonance. When two beliefs conflict, the brain wants to reduce the discomfort. One belief says, I am not good enough. The evidence says, I succeeded. Instead of immediately changing the deeper belief, the mind may dismiss the evidence. This is why one achievement may not be enough to change how you see yourself. Your brain does not update its model from one isolated event. It learns through repeated experiences. The same way one warm day does not convince you that winter is over. Your self-image needs consistent evidence, not dramatic proof, repeated, ordinary proof. And this leads to the first principle. 1. Stop making success pass a courtroom. When something goes well, notice your first explanation. Do you say, I worked for this? Or, I got lucky? The goal is not to force yourself to feel confident. That would simply create another performance. Instead, ask, what evidence contributed to this outcome? Maybe you prepared. Maybe you practiced. Maybe you stayed consistent. Maybe someone trusted you because of something you had already demonstrated. This works because the brain needs accurate attribution. If you constantly assign success to luck and failure to your personality, your brain learns a distorted pattern. Success becomes external. Failure becomes personal. Visual. A notebook with 2 columns, what happened and what contributed to it. For example, if you receive a good grade, do not simply say the questions were easy. Ask what you actually did. You studied, you practiced, you showed up. You may still have had luck, but luck is not the whole explanation. Your brain needs a more accurate story, and accurate stories are more powerful than exaggerated affirmations. 2. Let your identity update slowly. You do not have to suddenly become a completely confident person. The brain resists sudden identity changes. A better approach is to collect small pieces of evidence. Instead of saying, I am extremely successful, say, I am becoming someone who can handle more responsibility. That statement is easier for the brain to accept. It creates less internal resistance. This works through gradual self-perception. Your brain observes your own behavior and uses it as information about who you are. Every time you do something difficult, you add another piece of evidence. Visual. Small stones slowly forming a path across a dark landscape. For example, you answer a difficult call. You finish a project. You speak even though you are nervous. These moments may seem small, but identity is often built from repeated behavior, not from one dramatic transformation. Separate a mistake from your identity. When you feel like a fraud, every mistake can feel like a confession. But a mistake and an identity are not the same thing. The brain often uses emotional reasoning. If I feel incompetent, I must be incompetent. But feelings are signals. They are not always accurate conclusions. When you make a mistake, describe the event specifically. Not, I am terrible at this, but I missed this detail. That change may seem simple, but it changes the brain's learning process. A specific mistake gives the brain information. A global identity attack gives the brain shame, and shame often makes learning harder. Visual. A red mark on a page being circled, not torn apart. For example, you send an email with an error. The useful lesson is, I need to check important emails before sending them. The harmful conclusion is, I should never be trusted. One teaches a behavior. The other attacks the self. 4. Practice receiving without immediately deflecting. When someone compliments you, notice what you do next. Do you say, it was nothing? I just got lucky. It wasn't that difficult. Try something different. Simply say, thank you. Then stop. This may feel uncomfortable. That discomfort is important information. Your brain may be unfamiliar with receiving positive information without immediately correcting it. The practice works through exposure. You are allowing your nervous system to experience recognition without escaping through self-deprecation. At first, praise may feel almost physically uncomfortable, but with repetition, the brain can learn. Being seen does not automatically lead to danger. Visual. A person standing beneath soft light, slowly becoming less tense. You do not have to believe every compliment immediately. You only have to stop rejecting it automatically. 5. Ask the question behind the fear. When you think, they will find out I am a fraud, ask yourself, what exactly do I believe they will discover? Often the fear is vague, but vague fears feel infinite. Make it specific. Are you afraid they will discover that you do not know everything? That you still make mistakes? That you need help? That you are not as confident as you appear? If so, you may not be afraid of being exposed as a fraud. You may be afraid of being revealed as human. Visual. A mask resting on an empty chair. And this distinction matters because no one who is competent knows everything. No one who is capable performs perfectly. The goal is not to become impossible to question. The goal is to stop treating normal imperfection as proof that you never belonged. The model to remember: think of your identity as a map. Your life can move into a new place before the map is updated, so you may arrive somewhere better, while your mind is still searching for the old roads. The discomfort does not necessarily mean you are lost. Sometimes it means your internal map is outdated, and updating a map takes time. You do not need to destroy the old version of yourself. You need to let new evidence exist beside it. The person who struggled may still be part of you, but they are not the only evidence anymore. You have also become the person who continued, the person who learned, the person who handled things they once believed they could not handle. Visual. An old map slowly transforming into a new landscape. So when life finally goes right, do not demand that you immediately feel worthy of it. That demand can become another form of pressure. Instead, notice the discomfort. Notice the urge to explain the success away. Notice the part of you that is waiting for the moment everything disappears, and gently ask, what if this feeling is not proof that I am a fraud? What if it is simply the feeling of becoming unfamiliar with a better version of my life? Because sometimes the hardest part of growth is not reaching a new place. It is allowing yourself to believe that you are allowed to remain there. Visual: empty room with sunlight slowly filling the floor. You may still doubt yourself. You may still feel nervous. You may still make mistakes. None of these things automatically cancel your progress. You do not have to feel like the person who belongs before you begin belonging. Sometimes belonging comes first, and the feeling arrives later, quietly, after enough ordinary days have passed, and your brain finally realizes, this is not an accident anymore. This is your life now. And perhaps the most honest form of confidence is not believing that you will never fail. It is no longer needing failure to explain why you succeeded.